Hello and welcome to a new video for the channel. This day we'll talk about how I made 7RR just trading, whatever was setting up in these days. So yeah, but first let's go into the P&L and actually, show some proof of what we did this week. Pull out the calculator to make sure we're actually making the right calculations. And by the way, my risk is of 40, so you'll know the actual RR. Okay, first trade was, the first day was a minus 20 right over here, minus 20. Let's add it. Let's actually analyze the trades that we took. Okay, this day, this was the first trade right over here, and let's actually go from scratch of what we saw. Okay, first thing I always look at is the daily time frame, which you can tell this is Nasdaq. It's freaking bullish, but absolutely insanely bullish. There's no questions asked. A lot of people, were saying that we're moving too high and to not trade it. Well, guess what? Every single day, if you get, from this day to all these others, you'll think, okay, we're moving so high. There's no way we're coming up. And what happens? We come up, we come up, we come up, every single day. So there's that. Okay, I'm not. I personally only trade one-sided markets because that's where you get the cleanest price action. Some people say your strategy should work in every single trading condition. I strongly disagree. I believe you should only trade when great trading conditions are met. And this is how I trade, and it makes for great returns on the long run. On the long run. Okay. So we see that there's tons of S&Ds over here where the EMAs are below price, showing tons of momentum. So yeah, I go into a lower time frame, let's say the 4-hour time frame, and what do I see? The price is constantly pulling up, pulling back, pulling up and pulling back into the 10, pulling up and pulling back. We're super bullish once again, so I go into a lower time frame like the 30-minute time frame. And what do I see? I see that price right over here, we pull down into the 50 EMA, which is something that I look for. After this, we start moving sideways. Okay, I like the way this is moving, so I decide to enter right over here at this high. Why not this high? Because this high is insanely high and this is just a week, so I'll take this as the high, the overall high. It makes more sense for me with a stop loss, a very small stop loss over here. Price comes up, we break even right over here. No, this is getting in the way, but anyways, we break even over here when price comes back. So I decide to once again enter when we move a little higher, because I thought I actually got out too early and we still have a chance. But guess what? Price pulls up and we break even once again. I believe there were like these were really small losses, like maybe $10 losses, and that's why we got the actual minus 20. That's where we got it from. Also this one, because it was also a break even, price got to RR. The trade was supposed to be off of this high right over here, and we just broke even. Okay, so that was the first day. We broke even 3 times, so that was that. And now we move it to here. Okay, I'm not gonna go to the daily because the context is exactly the same, but the 4-hour though is just a bit different. Instead of being so early right over here, we're coming up higher in this area. We're coming up higher in this area. Okay, so I want to get involved in this. I go into a 30-minute time frame, and what do you see? I see that we're pulling up out of this stage one right over here, or right over here. You can draw it how you want it, but we're out of this mess basically. And what happens is that we're pulling up, pulling back into 10, pulling up and pulling back. And I am really interested in this price action, so I go into a 5-minute time frame right over here. What do you see? I see that price has made a great move to the downside, like, very nicely. It's not super choppy. It looks great. Beautiful move to the upside. Imbalance is filled. S&D right over here that actually gets touched. This is not like a huge factor in my trading, but it's a great sign because price looks overall clean. Now, this is the important part. We go below the 50, which is something that we look for. Once again, for the most part, there's a couple exceptions, but yeah, for the most part, I do look for the EMA 50 to be above, at least partially, like it does here. Then price pulls up, and once again, what do you see? I see that we made an S&D zone right over here, which means that price has lots of strength coming in and leaves an imbalance right over here. Price pulls up, pulls back, imbalance, and S&D are filled, and we enter right over here just a tiny bit, a bit late, but it was a great entry for the most part. But I would have liked to be, a bit more early. Okay, so we partial over here, right around here for +2. You can see it here, and then we take like 0.5 off around here, and we got out at a +2.5 RR. Okay, which you can see it here. Now, what about the next day? $99. The next day, let's actually go into my private mentorship. If you actually want to go into the private mentorship, you can get it at bullishg.com. The link is in the description. You get a ton of perks. You get weekly outlooks where I analyze everything that will set up next week, everything that I will watch next week. You also have indicators, the one that you see here. There's a couple more features that you'll see, but I have them, not available visually because it makes a ton of noise for now. That's not the point of the video, but you'll get indicators, the EMAs, the trend prediction right over here, the number of highs, consecutive highs made, all of these things that just facilitate your trading. You don't need this to be profitable, but if you want it, you can get it again at bullishg.com. You can purchase every product individually, but you can also, if you get the mentorship, which is $100, you get every single product with it. Okay, enough of an advertisement. Let's go back to the actual trading. Okay. Oh, and by the way, you can also get I do price updates. So every single trade that I take is here on the Discord. And these are not signals, by the way. This is just for educational purposes only, because most of the time I do the update a little late because I'm trading a 1 minute time frame. So yeah, okay, but you'll know what I'm trading, that's for sure. Next trade was, I believe, this was Bitcoin. Yeah, next trade was Bitcoin. Let's actually look into it. Bitcoin right over here. This is for futures, by the way. I think it's obvious by now, but yeah, it's futures. And this is the trade. Let's actually break it down from scratch, because a lot of people are talking about how Bitcoin is gonna fall and we're going to new lows and that this is not the bottom. As a trader, personally, you shouldn't care if this is the bottom or not. Why? Because you only get involved when the context is good, and if it's not, so be it. You won't be on trades. It doesn't really affect you. But I personally, just for education and for fun, I personally think we have reached the bottom. Why? Okay, first of all, a lot of people think that this is not the bottom because this looks like this, and I actually disagree. Yes, these are both stage ones. These are both consolidations. These are both sideways movements, but this is very different from this. If you compare this to this one, I mean, in my opinion, it's not comparable. This is actually a longer term stage one. This is actually great for changes of directions. This move was around 53 days, while this one was 67 days. Not only that, the EMA 50 is stacking up with the EMA 10 and 20, which is something that we never got to see here. Price, is above the EMA 50, which is a great sign to turn directions. And again, we didn't get to see this here. Once again, we're getting closer to the 200 EMA. which we did got to see here, but we're also getting closer here. And one more thing is S&Ds. There's a ton of S&Ds, not only S&Ds, but double S&Ds, one after the other constantly. One, two, one, two, even one here. Maybe we make another one here, although it's not really important. If you compare it to this, you only see one S&D that stands out, which is this one. Okay, so in my opinion, they're very different. Oh, also, there is no stage two here. The only stage two we saw was this little candle, barely. In comparison to this one, we see a big stage two coming in. So this is very different to this one. Also, there's lots of clean candles. So even though we're not bullish yet, I'm trading in lower time frame, so it doesn't really matter as long as we're showing some kind of indication or some kind of bullishness, even if it's little. I'm good to trade it. Okay, now let's go into a lower time frame. Okay, I go into a 4-hour time frame, and I see that around here it starts getting clean, but at this moment I'm looking at other options that are way better. At this moment there was nothing else to trade, and I looked into this into this asset, into Bitcoin, and I see that right here price pulls up, pulls back into 10 and 20, and gets clean over here. And I was like, okay, I want to get involved in this. And going to lower time frame, and I see on the 30-minute time frame that we're out of this area, this stage one, this long-term stage one, super sideways, super choppy. And right over here we come up back into 10, come up back into 10, and this is where I'm interested. Not because this is not good or this is not good, it's just because I was looking at other things at the time. So right over here I was like, okay, this is good. I go into a lower time frame, the 5-minute time frame, right over here, right over here. And as I said, usually I want price to come back into the 50, but remember I said there's some exceptions. Well, this is one of them. Why? Because if price doesn't come into the 50, at least I want to see some more sideways. Okay, so usually when price comes into the 50 and you take a trade, price comes down, makes a high, makes a low inside of a range, then we break the high and we enter. But this doesn't always happen. Okay, instead, if it doesn't do that, I want to see this, price coming up, price goes sideways. Usually they do something like this, and we enter. So in this case, although it didn't touch the 50, when it does this, when it goes sideways, I consider this. Okay, now this was a small loss around minus 0.5, I believe. Minus 0.5, minus 0.6, something like that. So yeah, we took a small loss right over here. And right over here, we also took a break even. We re-enter over here. Actually, it should have been a win, but we broke even right here. It was a mistake, but what can you do? That's part of the game. So yeah, then price comes up outside of this stage one, this long-term, very long-term stage one, pulls back into the 10, and I go into a lower time frame. What do I see? We're inside this range. Price comes down below the 50, pulls up, pulls down. We enter right over here and we take profits. We take a plus 2, and then we take a plus 0.7. Actually, it was more than that. I actually recalculated it, because this doesn't make sense. If I made 100, how come I made more than what I originally it said? But it's because of this loss. Okay, so it was more like a plus 1. My bad. It was more like a plus 1, and it was a bit more than plus 2. Okay, it was because we took this trade, so the day ended up being plus 99, but originally we got like 120 when it comes to this trade. Okay, So these were the trades that I took on Bitcoin. Very simple, very nice, very clean. So yeah, now let's go into the next asset. Yeah, look here. I was just telling you guys what I wanted to see. Was on the trade. We took a small loss. All of this. Yeah. Every update it's in the group. So again, if you want to join, just do that. My analysis was here. So yeah. Now let's go again. Let's go into the next trade, which was right over here. No, it wasn't this. It was NQ. Yeah, over here. And by the way, we missed a ton of trades. Why? I mean, I didn't want to do anything. It was Friday, and I got my profit, so I was like, okay, let me step out, and we did got. I mean, this trade was amazing. This trade was also good on a higher time frame. This I wouldn't have taken, but yeah, it was this trade over here. We actually missed this trade also, which was a huge runner. Yeah, it is what it is. But the daily looked great. Very bullish. Let's delete this. Same thing as YM, as ES. All that. We just keep going bullish. Amazing price action. We go into a lower time frame, and yeah, same thing. Pull back into the 10 and 20, and we follow this all the way into the upside. Okay, 30-minute time frame. Right over here, pulls back into the 10 and 20, and I want to follow this. Okay, 5-minute time frame. Miss this trade. This would have been an entry. How stupid. But anyways, it is what it is. Now, what I see here, it's price pulling back into 10 and 20. And at this moment, I'm really interested in taking this trade. The first one, we took 2 trades in this area. The first one was a loss. We were a bit, okay, I think this was a 5-minute entry. Was it? No, it was a 1-minute entry. Okay, so the first trade, I think we were a bit late, to be honest. This probably should have been a break even. If we took the perfect entry, like something like this, something like this, could it have been a break even? Yes, 100%. But it is what it is. Which you take your wins and your losses and you run with them. Okay, it was quite late. I saw that we went below the EMA 50. We pulled up, pulled back. We entered right over here. I think spread filled us right over here. That was the reason mainly. If we didn't have a big spread, we would have get filled around here instead, which is probably enough to break even. Okay, now we took a loss right over here, and immediately it starts setting up again. This was almost a bit late, but it was just enough to take the trade. Still, if it went any more below, I probably wouldn't have taken 100%. I wouldn't have taken it. But what happens next? We pull up, we pull back. I'm not convinced yet because it's too deep, and we're sometimes I like to draw a line to make sure we're kind of like out of trouble, or at least just about to be out of the area overall. And yeah, this wasn't this wasn't close. Okay, so I go into closer over here. I see this S&D zone being created, which is fucking amazing. You can see it here. S&D zone created, leaves an imbalance right over here, gets filled. Again, this is not super important for me, but it just shows lots of momentum. Okay, then we break this area right over here, and boom, we just start showing tons and tons of movement. Okay, and once again, this was we took a bit more from here. um Maybe not this is the right amount, I don't know, but you can see it here. Okay, the overall PNL. which is 100, and we lost another one, so it was 40. Actually, we lost 55 here, even though it says -1. My risk is of 40, but with slippage and other things, you lose a bit more. But yeah, my risk is of 40. So this was actually the right amount. Plus 1.2 around here we took at 2.88 RR. It was actually plus 1.4. We took 50% off, and this is actually also plus 1.6 probably. We took partials here, then price pulls down almost all the way into Bitcoin. Sorry, into break even. I was saying Bitcoin because it was the same mistake. Then we pull up, and by the way, my break even was around here, so we didn't make the same mistake this time. And actually, my break even was around here or here or here, but I decided to move it down. We pull up again, and at this moment, I'm like, okay, if price pulls back one more time, this is going sideways, and this is going nowhere. Okay, so it ended up going up, but it doesn't really matter because we went deep into into our entry. So it's a break even every single day of the day. So once we see this action, I move my stop loss right over here, and we take a plus 1.6, just around that, kind of like that, maybe a bit higher. But yeah, that's every single trade we took, and that's how I made a total of 7 plus RR. Okay, um, we had minimum losses. We lost around 1.5 in total because of that small loss we had on, I forgot which one was it, but yeah, all the break evens on Bitcoin, that one loss we had, and that one small loss we had, and this full loss. Okay, so those are all the trades we took. We took let's just say 2 losses, but in reality it's like 1.5, one real loss only. And this is overall a great week. This was 7%. The S&P performs a total of 15%. Imagine $40 is your 1%. And for me, it's that. Uh, I know it's a 50K account, but for me, whatever I'm risking is my 1%. Um, and yeah, I mean, once again, the S&P makes 15% per year, if I'm not mistaken, and we did half of that in a week. And by the way, if you sum everything up, everything that this account has made, we were at the deepest point, I think right over here. Yeah, at the deepest point right over here, um, at 49,828, which my actual bottom was 48,777, so minus $233. It's because it's end of day drawdown or whatever, so it doesn't show it. It doesn't show because I recovered. I got a win um, later in the day probably, so that's why it doesn't show. It recovered in capital, and yeah, but the total was minus 233, and now the upside is 544, which equals to around 19 RR or something in the last 2 weeks. In the last actually 11 days. So that's insane. We outperformed the S&P in 2 weeks of what it does in a year, like 1 point something times, like not only multiply by 1, but like 1 point something. So it's insane. Thank you guys for watching. um I hope you enjoyed the video, and I see you on the next time. Peace.